some of them give you like 5 or 6, and I'm like, I could be 5 or 3 for the whole day.
Because it's colorful and they're selling you something.
Yeah.
It's colorful when there's 5. There's like a red one, a green, 2 green ones, a white one, and an orange one, right? Like somehow there's an array of colors. I think that's why they do that. Personally, I think. I don't know. Again, that's an opinion, but it's not. What I want you to feel is the actual cleanse, and I want you to feel what it's like to really struggle with diet too. Like that's the other exercise. Because some people are dieting heavily. Not everybody is born thin. Some people are born and they struggle with weight from like the time that they're. I have kids, as you all know, and I'm telling you, they're kids that are overweight, and some of it's just like they're inheriting it from their parents. They just have a propensity to gaining weight. So a yoga teacher should know that struggle. It's good for you to know. Even though, like, I don't personally struggle a lot with weight, but I still do know what it's like to struggle with diet. Because it's really hard, especially for a Vata. We'll talk about that later. The dosha is a Vata body type. The thin, wiry body types really struggle with fasting because it's just like a documented thing. Like, the thinner you are, the less your body is, like, your metabolism's faster, so you get hungry. Like I remember when I was in my 20s, I'd get hungry every 2 hours. Not exaggerating, 2 hours. I would go and surf or whatever it was, and I'd have to eat after. So the cleanses that I would do would be if you have the money, do the juice cleanse. You can just type in juice cleanse, but you could just simply, like, it's 2 days, so whatever you do, it's not going to really affect you that much. You could just do like a simple juice cleanse of, like, let's say coconut water is your main source of hydration, and then you can do like some kind of a starchy one where it can be like coconut water and cashew milk if you want, and then mix in a citrus with that. Citrus and then a beet juice, and that would be fine. Again, don't buy a cleanse from like a place unless you have money to burn. That's fine. If you got $250 to buy it where they ship it to you, great.
How many juices a day?
$250 a day?
No.
Oh,
How many juices
I was doing 5 a day. I thought that was a little too much, personally. It was too much for me, but I'm also
3 to 5.
3 to 5. Yeah, 3 to 5. But they add up too, because each one of those juices is about $7 to $9.
Yeah, this one's 13. I was just like,
right.
It has like protein in it, but it's
yeah, it can be really like a meal. So
a
simple juice, it could also just be a simple juice in coconut water. Matter of fact, for 2 days, it could just be coconut water. It's not going to matter. You can fast for 2 days. Just have coconut water, and that's fine. You could, matter of fact, you could just drink water, but it's going to be harder on your system. Okay, the other thing I want to mention about diet. So I mentioned diet here. I cannot tell you how many students have come to me and said, like, I don't know, I'm just not losing enough weight. I don't know what to do, I'm not losing weight. And I'm like, well, what are you eating? Like, well, I'm just, I eat regular. I don't, And I'm like, well, what does that mean? Like, 3 meals a day. And I'm like, okay, you're working out with me how many days? What, 5? Yeah, 4 or 5 days a week. I'm like, okay, all right, I believe that part of it. Diet is the other part of this. You could work out 6, 7 days a week. And if your diet sucks and you're only doing a 1-hour class, let's remember, as hard as these classes are, they count depending on what your diet is like. Mine are some of the highest calorie that I've found as far as according to the Apple Watch. And again, I'm just saying my source is the Apple Watch and cross-referencing heartbeats per minute with calorie counters. Okay, that's as close as we can get unless I get a VMAX machine, which costs thousands and thousands of dollars. Those are in labs. But using that and as a general reference, my classes burn anywhere from 600 to 1,100 calories. That's really high for a yoga class. It's really high for running, actually. Like it's equivalent of running. Average runner's about 500 per hour. Okay, so it's up there with running, which is a good way to burn calories. If your student is not losing weight, either they have a thyroid condition, which is possible, which one of my students did actually. Turned out she actually had the beginning stages of cancer on her thyroid. So luckily I told her, the first thing I said to her was, go get a panel, talk to your doctor, because I believed her about her diet. She was very rigorous. And she had a thyroid condition, but barring the thyroid condition, it's their diet. And it doesn't matter what they say. If it's not their metabolism, they don't have Hashimoto's or some kind of a metabolic issue, then it's diet. And that's why they're not losing weight. It's that simple. They think it's normal. And they sit and they graze, and I'm totally going to look like a hypocrite because I brought a bunch of cashews for my snack. But cashews are I brought them because I haven't eaten enough today, in my opinion, because I do fast. I do intermittent fasting. So I brought cashews because I need the fat. But I'll ask these students, they'll be like, well, I snack, but I don't really eat big meals. And you'll find out that, so you give them, you can give them like an app to count their calories, and you'll be shocked that most of them are drinking their calories. They're drinking, what I found with a lot of my students, they were drinking like Frappuccinos and ice blendeds. And a large ice blended is like 890 calories. To give you an idea, you can live like healthfully on 1,500 calories. Okay? So that's like half of all of your meals for the whole day is in that one drink. But what I was finding is, no, they were going to the Grove, they were eating like a regular meal. Well, what's a regular meal? 2 eggs, bacon, and hash browns. That's not a regular meal. That's an American meal, which is not a regular meal. Okay? That's enough for the whole day. The hash browns alone are probably 700 to 800 calories, believe it or not. Just the hash browns, because they're soaked in oil. Okay? So it's 2 wings in this game. It's diet and exercise. And that's how these things balance out. If they're arguing with you, give them a calorie counter. There are a bunch of them on there. I'm trying to think of the names of them, but just type in calorie
There's
counter.
MyFitnessPal.
Yeah,
that's a food journal. There's like
Just use MyFitnessPal. That's the one that I'm familiar with. That's a good one.
That one has.
Does anybody use calorie counters or no?
I used to.
Yeah.
So also be careful. Again, be careful with your diet. Like you don't want to turn people into, there is a problem with anorexia also. People get obsessive compulsive about this stuff. But they are coming to you for fitness, and a lot of people want to be thin, especially in Hollywood, especially where we live. And their job depends on it. I mean, some students are models, and they're in a certain genre of I have students that are fitness models all the time here, all the time. Bikini models. That's what they have to do. They can't, and I'm not going to let them lie to themselves and to me about the fact that they're eating wrong. Or some of them it's on the other side of it, which that's a whole other discussion. Okay. Any questions or things you want to add to diet? No? Because they're like, no, let's not talk about it. Okay. All right. So that's the point that I wanted to make with that.
Will any of that be on the exam?
What?
Will any of that we just talked about be on the final exam?
Maybe metabolism a little
Okay.
bit, but I think that's coming. The metabolism
Later.
thing is going to come later on. Yeah, and there might be the basics too about
Like
discussion
the
of
basics
calories.
of fasting.
Yeah, and some of the basic stuff. Okay, so let's get into a little bit of anatomy. So today we're really going to cover bones, spines, wrists, and then also a little bit I want to talk about how to begin anatomy. Because anatomy is, you could study anatomy for 10 years, 20 years. I mean, it's just a never-ending thing. Last week we covered the foot. Did you watch the foot? The foot one? So we covered the foot a little bit. We're going to move to the wrist. Now the reason I go to the foot and wrist because these are the 2 bases of a lot of the poses that we do. And like for instance, we do a lot of down dog, a lot of chaturanga, and a lot of that stuff is going to revolve around most of the issues related to yoga pain will be regarding the wrist will be. It's usually going to be the band that comes around the wrist, and then the wrist joint material, usually on the outside edge of the joint, which will be here. Okay, when people are bending the wrist, and I'm going to actually take this off. So carpal tunnel. You guys have heard that term, carpal tunnel? So carpal tunnel. Just sitting tight from sitting on this.
Forward fold, Stephen. Forward
What?
fold.
I'm getting older. I mean, well, you know what? Sitting is really bad for you.
It is.
Okay, let's stand up a little bit. Let's stand.
I noticed
Really
last
bad
week,
for you,
like from
yeah.
sitting, I was like, oh, my
I
tailbone
know.
hurts.
Yeah, like for me, it's my lower back, and it's actually we're not supposed to sit that long. So why don't we just like let's just do like a little like kind of hip rolls. It's funny because we just did a yoga class too.
I
you
know.
Like, all warm and everything, but it doesn't matter.
I was thinking this week I
the
should
same
bring like a
thing.
meditation pillow.
What are you thinking?
Sitting on a meditation pillow.
Yeah, actually, I should. I used to bring one, but I didn't bring it today. I'm totally. I'm guilty of being ignorant of what I need for my body. But I also do think like, I don't know, if you baby your body too much too, like there's a little bit of that. Like your body does develop strength from being pushed. So. Okay, so we're going to cover. Actually, let's just go through while we're here. So carpal tunnel, if you there's like a little band around here that basically gets irritated from. It's not all the yoga's fault though. Right now, a lot of it is from the phones and from computers. We spend so much time with our phones and on the computer that we're actually people are developing carpal tunnel that don't even exercise. Like they never do down dog and they get carpal tunnel. But when the wrist is pushed so heavily, sometimes they already have like the beginning stage of carpal tunnel syndrome, which is there's a band across the wrist, and it basically gets like swollen from just being used so much that they develop a lot of pain from doing down dogs and mainly upward dogs. But here, I'll show you so we can put this on the ground. How deep of a bend this actually is. Okay, so when we're in down dog, you can see like it's even downward dog is a pretty deep bend. I mean, that's already like probably an 80-degree bend. And then when you're in upward dog pose, you're like all the way over here. So you're actually past the 90-degree bend. Anything past 90 degrees on a joint is an extreme bend. Some people can't even do upward dog correctly. When they do it, they have to be back here. And so in those cases, I tell people, like I did today, bend your elbows and lower your belly down on the ground. Okay? And the reason I do is because this is such an extreme bend of the wrist, right? You're in extreme dorsiflexion of the wrist. So you're pressing like that. And you can see how fragile the bones, especially here, are. You can see how it's all like thin on this side, but much thicker and robust on this side. So on the interior part. What does that tell us by looking at that? What's the stronger part of the hand? Right. Where the thumb is, right? Versus where the pinky finger is. Again, we're not doctors. We're not here to diagnose. You know, we don't have to know. But what we do have to know is that if people are starting to get pains in their wrist, how are we going to deal with that as a yoga teacher? Well, there are a couple of things we can do. Number one, when we're doing downward dog pose, instead of having the hands turned in like this, it's not good alignment to have them turn out a little bit like this. See, my middle finger is more parallel to the side. If I was on a yoga mat, my hands are parallel and and slightly, the index fingers are parallel to each other to the edge of the mat, and slightly externally rotated in down dog. You see that? And why? Right? The reason we know that that's going to be a better position for most people is because this part of the hand is substantially stronger than the outside is. Because you can even feel it yourself. Like even if you just look at these bones, like you can put your hand like this, feel the bones here, and then feel the bones here. They're like so much stronger, so much bigger, right? So for people having issues with their wrist and hand in yoga, the first thing to look for, are they doing it internally? And when people say there is no right or wrong in the way to do a pose, that's not true. Because there is this structure, there is right and wrong. If we didn't have the bone structure, you could say, okay, yeah, we're all just, made out of cartilage or something. Then maybe we could get away with a lot more. But in fact, we are more biomechanical, right? Like this is a physical structure in here. So you look for internal, external rotation. You make sure that they rotate out. And then if you look at my upward dog pose, I'm not sure when I'm going to get too old to display this stuff, but so far it hasn't happened. When I do upward dog, my wrists are behind my shoulders, right? But I'm pulling the floor, so I'm lengthening the spine. My arms are rotated externally, right? So you see how my bones are rotated out from the midline out, but my hands are actually still pointing forward. So I'm actually rotating back. Okay, because this takes pressure off of my lower back. And use rough and out. If they can't do that, their wrists still hurt too much. They're still slightly externally rotated with the hands. And it still hurts, then they don't have a choice. Then they have to do this. No cobra. When we go into down dog, knees stay down. Tuck the toes. Back to down dog. And again, external rotation. Okay? So you rotate, you change the hand position from internal rotation to external rotation. Make sure the pressure is on the index finger and thumb side. So that's going to be the stronger side. And hopefully over time, I talked about this today, certain poses take years to develop the density to actually do them correctly. There's a reason it takes time to learn handstand. Because your body has to develop the density to be able to do it. Right? Your wrists have to get strong enough over time to actually suspend in midair on these 2 points. Look how small this is. I mean, look at this. This is exactly like we were talking about earlier. Like, this is exactly the size of my body. Like, this is what my bones look like. It's a male. It's exactly what they look like, pretty much. It's an anatomically correct thing. And you can see that when all the weight is on my wrist. So here, let's take a moment. Liz, let me give this to you, and you can take a look at it and hand it around. And you'll see that these are very small structures we're balancing on. Even in crow, when we're doing crow, all the weight is on like this much bone, like the size of a marble. Plus, remember too, it's not like it's like a nice square thing. It's actually like, most joints are slightly rounded. So you're actually on less surface. Whatever the joint actually looks like, you're usually on a slightly smaller surface. That's actually taking pressure. It might be on the wrist, believe it or not, 1 centimeter or 9 or 8 millimeters of pressure being pushed against the bones. It's a really small section. Across the 2 bones, yes, but predominantly on the larger bones. Another thing with the wrist too is sometimes I see people have damaged their wrist, they damaged their hands, they've broken their hands, things like that. When there is a break, then usually the same alignment adjustments will apply to the wrist, but not always, because sometimes they have like arthritis and specific conditions. So when it comes to an actual like sick hand, there's something wrong with the hand, then you really have to like work one-on-one with them a little bit and see what's going on. Sometimes you'll find like they actually like, whatever, they slam their hand. And another thing too to look for, when you see a student that's asking about their anatomy and they're saying like, hey, my bones, it really hurts my bones right here. The first thing I look for, I'll say, well, let me see your hand. And what I look for is a scar. Usually I do. I find a scar. And I'm like, well, I'll be like, what's this big scar right across your wrist? Oh, well, I have a plate in there. I'm like, oh, okay. What happened to your wrist? Oh, I shattered it playing baseball. I got hit by a baseball, and I shattered my wrist. I'm like, okay, it's not the pose. In that case, it's not the pose. There's probably arthritis in the joint, meaning there's a slight inflammation and lack of mobility in the joint. Or screws in the joint. Thank you. Now everything gets all screwed together. So there's also like a physical piece of metal inside the joint or something. So you also look for that as well. Okay, so pay attention to stuff like that. Any other questions? Any questions about the wrist so far? Yeah.
With the hands and the wrists, I notice that sometimes I personally, and I know that Lily and Evan have experiences, like I get a pain along the pinky side of my left hand in class, like on the bottom here, and I don't know if it's my bones or my tendons or but it's just from like
I believe the pinky
pressure.
side pain, oddly enough, is related to the elbow, the ulnar
wow.
nerve,
Okay.
triggering pain to the left pinky, and it's basically like
Even
if
on
it's
the pad of the
I believe it's
hand?
like this. It's like if it's carpal tunnel, it goes here and to the inside edge of the ring finger. If it's pinky finger and the outside edge of the ring finger, and it is this specific, it's the ulnar nerve, the funny bone. So if you take your hand and you push right in here, you feel like, have you ever done that? Where you push right inside and you hit the funny bone? How many of you ever hit your funny bone? Everyone has, right? It's like, and you feel that sharp pain, and usually goes down to your pinky finger and the inside edge of your other finger. That's the ulnar. So that's more related to your chaturanga. When do you feel it?
I don't feel it all the time. I feel like sometimes in chaturanga, sometimes in down dog, I can just feel that I'm either pushing too much on that side, and then if I balance out.
Could be, though. It still could be too much pressure in the actual structure of the left side, the outer edge of your hand. Could be. But it also could be the ulnar nerve.
Okay.
Again, it's a question there. We don't really know. Can't say for sure, but most likely that would be related usually to the ulnar nerve. So in here. So it has to do with like it being triggered when you're doing the downward dog postures.
And do you ever get that in class where people say, oh, the pads of my hands hurt,
Yes, usually like your frame is like really slender and you're not like, you're built really like thin. You're not like, I don't know. There isn't anyone in this class I have a couple of students that are like really thick and like you're really thin. So yes, I could see that. The structure also plays a role as to whether the chaturangas and different parts are going to hurt in certain poses. I have seen that many times. Specifically why I'm talking about it in class, downward dog pose. But do you rotate out in down dog? Yeah. Does that help?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it usually does. Another thing that people can do for the anatomy of their wrist, if they have really thin bones, and again, I'm just saying like some people's bones are thicker than others. I'm not saying like, it's politically incorrect to say like whether someone's heavier or not. But the fact is the structure of your body will play a role to which poses are going to affect you and be easier for you than others, okay? So what I would say with that too is you could try, some people say, gripping the floor, some kind of clawing the ground, like an eagle's claw. Have you heard that term, eagle's claw? So you kind of grip like that. You can try that, see if that helps. The fact that your sister has a similar thing, so that points it more in the direction of your skeletal structure. So it could be like you have really thin pads. Like your pads are even smaller than this. They're smaller than mine. And I'm okay because I've been doing it so long, but there's a good chance that the area of pressure is thinner, and so it's causing some issues. All right. Any questions on the hand? Down dog, handstands? No? Okay, another thing too with handstand is to not try to muscle it. If you're gonna fall, let yourself twist out of it and fall. Don't try to use all the tendons in your hands to like muscle the pose. You can do it in elbow stand, it's different, or head stand, it's different. Because those are more robust muscles. Like that's more, elbow stand is more your back and your triceps. Those are like bigger, it's these bigger muscles in the body. So you can muscle those, although they are in the end technique, but there's some muscular structure. With handstand, it's not, it's balance. Handstand, you've got to be in the right position of the bone to balance, where you're not using a ton of strength. You're using balance. You're just balancing and suspending in the right position, anchored on your bones. And if you start falling over, don't try to muscle it with your forearm strength, okay? Because if you do, you're going to pull the muscles, you're going to hurt your wrist, basically.
Just fall.
Twist, yeah, like do a cartwheel out of it. Or fall, do a tuck and roll out of it. Okay, we don't see a lot, again, I tend to focus on the joints that have a lot of issues. We don't see a lot of issues with the elbow in yoga. Sometimes people have broken their arm, like me when I broke my arm. I was having a lot of pain in my elbow. It did eventually go away, but I noticed I felt the pain in the ulnar nerve. There's a giant nerve, so if you want to write it down, you can write down, what is the funny bone? The ulnar nerve. Okay? Because there's the radius and the ulna. The ulnar nerve sometimes gets inflamed, and then it starts to hurt in the elbow. So like tennis elbow. Or I have students that play tennis. If they play a bunch of tennis and then come to yoga, then sometimes the two combined causes some issue with the elbow. Barring that, I don't see a lot of elbow issues in yoga. It's pretty rare for whatever. I don't know why, but it's not that common that I see elbow issues. Usually because I teach people, put your knees down. I think when people are allowed to put their knees down and not keep themselves suspended in chaturanga, they don't injure themselves as much. So allowing for people to adjust within the posture is really important for longevity of your classes. Okay? Because like today, I don't know if you guys saw, but there were a few students that were over here, like where Suki is, and they have to take a bunch of breaks. They don't do my yoga a lot. They do more gentle yoga. They do a lot of other, like chanting and things like that. And that kind of yoga is much more gentle on the human body. And because your body adapts to whatever it does, it's going to adapt to a more gentle practice. So they come here, they can still practice here, but they have a lot more difficulty. Now I want to talk a little bit about the shoulder joint. So the shoulder joint, and we might have to actually go a little bit, might have to have you come up here a little bit closer, but it's pretty like fundamentally basic with the shoulder. You can see, even probably on the camera, that one side looks like a cue ball, it's all polished, right? It looks literally like if you took a cue ball and cut it in half, the space that needs to articulate, that needs to move in the joint, is the polished end, right? None of you would argue alignment to that, because you can see it, right? How do we know? Like it says in the Tao Te Ching, by seeing. But yet every day almost, I get somebody doing this, like that. Rotating the arm internally and lifting overhead. Even people in the fitness industry, for some reason. I'll explain why that's not good.
Why it's not good for
Why that's not good for the shoulder at all. And again, like, oh, but people do it in gymnastics. True. And people that do gymnastics are injured severely all the time. Just because people do it doesn't mean it's right. You know? Just because something is widely practiced. Ballet, perfect example. Extreme external rotation. And there's a fetish for ballet. People love to see women do these things, or men too. But that doesn't mean it's healthy. It just means it's been around a long time. And then there's stubborn teachers like me that I don't care. I don't care if I upset, and for those of you out there, I care a little bit. I mean, I don't want to upset the whole world of yoga. But if it's something that is not anatomically correct, I'm not going to perpetuate the damage. So I don't care. That trumps I don't even want to use that term anymore. wrong, but that takes precedence over what some other person says. These are nuts and bolts. If you rotate your arm like this, and then lift it overhead like this. Now, mind you, there's all this tissue in here, right? There's joint material, we have ligaments, we have tendons, we have all kinds of tissue in here. If I rotate like this and lift my arm overhead, you can see it's going to collide with these 2 points, right? Plus, you also have another process here, which is not as much of an issue for yoga. But try it. Stand up, take your arm like this, try to lift your arm overhead. Without momentum, you can't lift it over your head very well, unless you're a dancer, maybe, because you've been doing it since you were a kid. But if you rotate this way and lift it overhead, look. This joint functions one way. It either functions correctly this way for many, many years to come. Okay, but rotate, Elizabeth, take a look like this. Yeah. And then, or you rotate it this way, try and lift it overhead, and it will collide. What you're feeling is, and if you rotate it enough and try to lift it, it will, I promise you, it will not lift. And be careful, you could hurt yourself. Pinches, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so again, can you do that? If you look at gymnastics, tap, they always do it that way. You can do it. But over time, plus, you don't see gymnasts my age, right? You just don't. You don't see them past 30. Like, they're old at 30. Okay? So, there is such a thing as correct rotation when lifting the arm overhead. It's like this. It's an external rotation. Now, so again, anatomical position is here. So when you're standing, this is anatomical position. Okay? So everything takes place from from this position, you're either internally rotating or externally rotated. Okay? So that's internal rotation, that's external rotation. If I lift my arms overhead, but I didn't rotate it from this position, it's still considered external rotation. Now again, I'll have people argue with me about this stuff, and I'm like, listen, I know what I know. Like, you don't have to agree with me, but this isn't my opinion. This is like documented fact. This bone has the greater lesser tuberosity. It has these bumps on it, and it is polished on one side, and it is not polished. For those of you who are going to argue with me about it, it's not polished on the outside edge. It's only polished here. Okay? That's a fact. So you will get more damage when you try to articulate against this surface. Okay? You can see it. It's obvious. You know? Again, not my opinion. I wish it was polished all the way around and all the attachment points were down here. You know, because then you could do all kinds of crazy stuff. But because for structural integrity, it needs attachment points. And it's perfectly functional as long as you externally rotate it. When the humeral head is below the shoulder, there's no risk there. It doesn't matter whether you rotate externally or internally. You can keep the pattern of, as a matter of fact, external rotation of the humeral bone, but internal rotation of the radius and ulna bones. You see that? Where the upper bone is externally rotated, but the inner bones are internally rotated. That's fine. And then the shoulder, clavicle is pushing down the back. That's warrior 2. Right? That's warrior 2. That's how they're supposed to be. You're supposed to rotate this bone, the radius and the ulna internally, but the humerus externally. Is it getting complicated now? It's going to get complicated, but this is studying anatomy in more depth in relation to alignment and why. Because what I want you to know more than anything is, I don't care about my opinions about yoga. If they were wrong before, I will study and change it. But this is science. This is just structural fact. Okay? Most people are agreeing with this now.
Yeah, I like that example when we do chair pulls. And so, yeah, it just makes you realize you should be externally
Externally rotated.
and not like this,
Right.
Like you want to externally rotate. So there's like a few things that kind of make clicks for me.
And you'll go do fitness classes where everyone's doing it the other way. And like, I can tell you, there are many times where I've been in fitness classes and I'm like, I don't do that. I don't argue with them. I'm not going to get in a big anatomical discussion with the teacher there, but I won't do it to my body. I'll just be like, nah, I can't do that. And if they hassle me, I'll say, hey man, I'm injured here. Like, I have an old injury. Just leave it alone. And usually, they'll usually leave it alone if they're smart. And usually they do. I don't find in the fitness world, most fitness teachers they're usually pretty cool about it. They're not, they don't really hassle you too much. And they know if you have been injured or something to leave you alone. It's pretty rare that it's the other way around. Okay, any questions on that? Have any of you seen exercises where you rotate the other way? Like in the gym?
I mean, well, technically, people do flies wrong all the time.
Right.
The chest fly. Is
Okay,
one
yeah, I
that
never
they
do those.
all the
Do
time.
they lift
all the way
overhead?
in the black.
Go like this?
fly.
Or do
Yeah.
you go like this?
Some people just do it. You see that
Like
play
that, right?
all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, and that does cause a lot of stress
It causes
right
so much
here. And I
stress.
have a feeling that's probably why.
There's one where you go like this,
Yeah.
but it's instead they do this. They rotate out, and then they lift the weight.
Oh yeah.
Like that. Okay, now
Do
this
this way.
is okay.
Yeah, that's what I do with that.
Where you hold the arm right next to the ear. So if you ever do yoga sculpt, like this is better than like this. And you see this all the time. All the time. Again, will you get injured in one class? Probably not. Probably not. But over time, again, you have to go across the numbers. You have to go across 1,000 people.